Hi folks, John from Designed Elegance Pastry Shop here again for you. So today we're going to talk about making some flowers. We're going to do buttercream flowers, very simple flowers. Flowers that you can decorate a cake with, but they're not, basically we're going to do some step one flowers. So first thing I wanted to do is explain a couple of the different tips. The first flower tip that we have would be a star tip, and this tip, if you can see it in there, it's just a basic star tip, and the general idea with this tip is a squeeze and a pull, or a little rosette. A rosette is when you basically turn it like this. A squeeze and a pull is when you squeeze icing out and then you pull it back. Creates a star effect. Now this tip, same type of idea, only it's got a little angle job here, and what that does is it makes the star points move at an angle. So it makes drop flowers. That's what they're called. This tip is an actual rose tip, and it's made for making any type of petal flower, such as a rose, a forget-me-not. Let's see. You'll have to forgive me. I don't know the names of a lot of the flowers. I make pretty flowers, so
that's okay.
Yes, exactly. I'm no florist. I don't know the proper names for all the different flowers. And then this is another type of rose tip. These are angled tips, and they are for making petaled flowers that have more texture. Basically, petals that open up are opening up. So what we'll do is I'm just going to use my basic white bag at first to show you some of the different techniques. So let's start by making some rosette tips. So we're going to use the star tip. We'll put it right on, and then use the collar on the coupler. That's how this works. That way you can interchange your tips back and forth without having to change your bag. Now what I'm going to do is, I have some paper squares. These are parchment squares, just like I use for underneath the cakes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this, and I'm just going to make a rosette like so. And that's a basic flower. You put a little green leaf next to it and a dot on top, and it's going to look fabulous. We'll make a couple more here. I'm using the paper so that they can be transferred back and forth. Once these flowers are chilled, then they can be put on a cake. So now let's try a different tip. We'll use the drop tip. Now this tip, what we're going to do is hold it stationary as we squeeze. And see the effect that it makes? Makes a perfect star because I use so much. Now I'm going to hold it closer, and it makes a different type of thing. So you can actually use the tips in different ways by the angle and also how far away from the cake you are. So if this is right next to the cake and I'm just squeezing out, makes a nice star. This is fat, this is not. Okay, so these are basic. These are the most basic flowers you can get. Absolutely the most basic. Now let's try one of these. This is this is what you call a petal flower tip, rose tip. Okay, now to use this tip, we can do a couple of different things. We can make basically cannas by going like this. See? Or you can do this, which makes a nice little spiral. And then if you take a green stem and put it with it, it makes a beautiful flower. So, again, it's just a couple circles, back and forth, getting smaller. I suggest that you get some tips and you just practice. When I was young, I used to just have my icing, I'd have my plate, I'd make my flowers, and they'd go right back into the bowl, and I would reload my bag, and I would keep making flowers. So, now let's get into some more advanced flowers. Okay, so I'm going to pull a pile of these out here. Okay, so now let's make some roses. Okay, what I'm going to do with this is a rose nail, okay, flower nail. And what I'm going to do is take a little spot of icing and put it on. And then I'm going to grab a paper. Okay, now this makes it so that the paper sticks to the rose, to the nail, excuse me. Now what I'm going to do is just build a little base. 1 and 2. And now now notice I have the thin part up and the fat part down on the bottom. Okay, so now I'm just a little pressure and I just wrapped it around. I'm using this stationary as I spin the nail. Let's see. Now I'm going to squeeze and do a little loopy up as I spin the nail very slowly, like so. Now I'm going to turn it, do it again, turn it, and do it again. Now I start with the next petal a little behind where I left off on my last petal, like so. Now I have 3. Now we can keep going. 1, 2. Now it's getting full, so you want to stop right there. Remember, not every flower is the same. They're all different, and they all have their unique personality. So you can't really go wrong, just as long as you make them look balanced. Okay? Like they would be in nature. Okay, so now here we go. This one I'm going to do a little more base. That way I can get an extra layer of petals around. Okay, so again, squeeze. That makes the initial inner cone. And then you want to come back behind where you left off and do a swoopy up. Pardon my technical terms, but you know. Anyway, right behind it, swoopy up again and again. The first set of petals, you typically look for 3. Next set of petals can be 5. 2, 3, or 3 big ones, whatever it takes. My icing is very soft. Again, in my videos you'll discover that I like to work with soft icing because it's easier to manipulate and easier to use. Okay, so let's do another one. Notice I'm spinning as I'm using my pressure. You don't need very much. Now I have another one. There's the cone. Okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Come back. 4, and there's the 5th. See, now you have a very full-looking rose. Nice. With the 3 and then the 5. And then, obviously, if it were even bigger, if I had a bigger base, now I could do another row that had 7. So that's how nature makes the flowers. Okay, so now let's do another type of flower. This is called a forget-me-not, and it's basically a petal flower. These are very pretty. They have nice dimension. Okay, now remember when I did the swoop up? Well, this time I'm going to do a swoop out. So I'm going to start in the center of my tip. Okay, notice I have the fat part in the middle, like this, and the thin part is going to be out because the petal opens out this way. Okay, so here's the first one. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. So there's your petal flower. Let's do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, keep in mind, this is probably a 104. There's a 101, a 102, 103, 104, 105, and so on. The 101 is a smaller tip, and obviously the 105 is a bigger tip. Bigger the tip, bigger the flower. Okay? Here's a smaller one. See the difference? So if I were to use the small tip, we would just be making smaller flowers. Now, one thing I like to do as I'm making my flowers is I like to have different shapes and different varieties. Even if they're all the same color, it doesn't matter. If they're different shapes, then they look more natural. So, even if it's different shapes of roses. So one thing that I like to do is I have my full roses and my petal flowers to go with them, and a couple of drop flowers to intermingle, and maybe some cannas for the side, or to give a little flair. But now, also, I can just do just one tiny little bud. Call that good. A tiny little flower.
Beautiful.
Just a few little petals. Basically, it's a rose that's not opened yet fully. So, I like to add a few of these. Basically, it's 1, 2, 3, and call that good. See? And there we go. So now, okay, so I hope that you've enjoyed this. I hope you've learned, and please feel free to practice. And don't forget, you can eat whatever you don't find perfect. That's part of the fun. So happy baking, and remember to bake with love and joy. Everything's better that way. Thank you so much.